I'm not getting paid to say this, but I've been wasting a lot of time at Kitty Cat Resort. It's a free app. Like you should get it, Victoria.
I'm scared.
Why are you scared?
I'm scared of what will happen to me.
I've only spent $3. No one told me to, but Scully's very disappointed in me.
That's funny.
He was like, don't download that. You're going to spend money. And I was like, I'm not going to spend money. It's free.
I understand. I saw a little bit of it, and it does look adorable.
It's insanely adorable.
Yeah.
None of the stuff I bought, you have to buy. I just didn't want to have to watch ads to get extra coins.
Yep. That's how they get you.
You could name your cat children that live on your island with you. And you pick up fur balls. You give them scritches. You give them pats. You know, they'll tell you where you want to do it. Like you just double tap them a couple times and then they'll position them. Sometimes they want a tummy rub, sometimes they want a butt rub, sometimes they want a chin scratch, but you'll gain like right now I've built it up. I've had the app for 3 days. I get about 4 million cat coins every time I pet my cats, but you know, sometimes they want to like have a drink. So we have a bar for them. It's a kitty bar where they can have lemonade with catnip leaves.
I was just gonna say, how's catnip work into this?
Yeah, that's it's a garnish, but they obviously that's the main draw.
Only way they can consume catnip, or are there other?
You know what? That's the main one. And
do the cats ever fight?
You know, they'll bat at each other a couple times, but no one's ever aggressive. Like the cat, they go out of their way to express that this is like a cat utopia where even if they do like a little playful like skirmish, you know, it never lasts more than a couple seconds. And then the cats, they
I wasn't
disperse.
sure, you know, sometimes when you play SimCity and disaster mode and like, you know, suddenly everything's on fire. I wasn't sure if this game
understandable
had a darker side.
It's not necessarily Sims-esque in that the cats are not going to start growing and developing in that capacity. It's more think cats. like a roller coaster tycoon.
Gotcha. You're
mostly building the facilities and then getting to enjoy watching the cats enjoy them. Hey, Victoria.
Oh, hey, Chelsea. Yeah.
You know what I could use right now?
No, what could you use?
I could use a billion cat coins, but I could also use a Breath of Fresh movie.
Meow.
Meow.
That's a movie I like to see.
You've got those like bowling alley, you know, gutter bumpers of like having like a job and a partner and a home and stuff to like take care of. You've got some obligations to maintain.
Yeah. Those are, you're right. The guardrails of
the guardrails is that what the term is? I call them the gutter bumper thing.
Bumpers, like bowling alley bumpers, perfectly good. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
But guardrails is like, I feel like I hear that at work.
Regardless, when I go to the bowling alley and I see children playing with like their dad who has custody with them that weekend and they've got the guardrails, I'm always jealous.
Yeah.
It looks like I'm like,
of the guardrails.
Yeah, guardrails. Yes, I've adopted
not the
it
dad.
Now. Yeah, the dad.
You keep trying to like sit with them.
Dad every other week in custody.
I'm next.
I just want to win some points.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is A Breath of Fresh Movie, a weekly podcast where me, Victoria Harley,
and me, Chelsea Poe,
we watch a movie that neither one of us has ever seen, and then we talk about it.
Boy, we haven't seen this one.
Yeah, and we might not talk about everything, but we will talk about anything.
Yeah.
I don't. You can't spoil this one.
This is definitely one of those. This is going to be one of those movies where it's just like no matter what we say, like we can't.
Nothing replaces the experience of watching this.
You gotta watch it.
Yeah. Completely agree. And we're talking about today's episode, today's film, the 1988 British horror comedy, The Lair of the White Worm, directed by Kenneth Russell.
I love that. I think so much of the credit that's given to this film is that it's very clear and succinct about identifying what it is, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a British comedy.
Yes.
Okay. This is a British camp comedy.
Yes.
So if you think something's stupid, that's on purpose. Okay.
I meant to do it that way.
Yeah, that was on purpose. You dip. and you're dumb if you don't appreciate it because it's British. And that's why this movie has as high of a rating as it has. That's my hot take.
I'm just going to say, though, critics in Britain, when this came out, did not like it.
Well, of course they didn't, because they
took it seriously.
Yeah, but outside of that, I do think like a good, I'm looking at the Rotten Tomato IMDb scores, I'm like, a good...
What was it?
20% or more. It's a 68% critical rating.
Okay.
It's technically fresh.
Okay.
And it's also higher than, like, I would argue, more like technically proficient, like lower rated films.
Yes.
You know, I would argue that like Pirates of the Caribbean 4 is a more competent film than this.
Yeah,
I would argue that one of my favorite films of all time, Heavyweights, which is below 40% on Rotten Tomatoes, is a more competently written film than this. It's a more competently made film than this. But the novelty and the self-awareness of it being a British B movie horror comedy. Yeah. It's all of these sort of, it's all of that sort of acts as a coat of armor, if you will. Yeah. For this film.
I mean,
that elevates it. It sort of, it's within the category of its genre, it makes it into, it manages to jump over these hurdles of like basic criticism and like it throws itself headfirst into only consider us as niche. Like this is niche.
Yeah. No, so, to take it seriously is to kind of miss.
You're the fool.
You're missing the fun, you know, is really what it is.
You're the fool.
You're the fool. So we're talking about a movie that is the basic premise is that an archaeologist uncovers a strange skull in an excavation, and the residents of the nearby town start to disappear. Oh no.
Oh no.
Sort of like a whodunit, but it's more of a monster movie, because we start learning about the Dampton worm, which is like this local legend. And by the way, this is a real legend. This is a real legend.
This is based off of Bram Stoker.
Well, okay, so Bram Stoker based it on an even older thing, though.
Oh, okay.
So yes, this is the adaptation.
Sorry, I
no.
There's just too much to.
It's a lot. No, and I was just gonna say, like the
worms
first
are snakes, and snakes might be dragons, and like
it could be anything.
Bad is good, and up is down.
I mean, literal first impressions. The first 5 to 10 minutes is like aggressively British. Just aggressively British.
I think the whole movie is actually.
You think it's...
I think the whole movie, because every time there's any moment of stakes, it's two people going, well, isn't this peculiar? Oh, look, well, I'm going to say, well, I guess we're enemies, aren't we? Well, you know that in my house we had, worms, actually. That's supposed to be a mean dragon, blah, 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 blah. Oh, I guess I'm done. It reminds me of that Family Guy episode where there's the scene where they're, Peter and whoever, they're sitting in those big chairs smoking pipes. And then he catches on fire. So, it appears I've spontaneously combusted. Oh, well, I've grown weary of the world. That's what this whole movie is. It's just, oh dear, I suppose it's time to slay the dragon.
No, totally. It's, I mean, I think but I mentioned the first 5 to 10 minutes only because like the guy digs this skull up. It's like the very first thing. And then there's this lady who I wasn't sure if it was a man or a woman at first. And then
you're not. And then another. I thought the same.
I thought,
thing.
Right. And I was like, whoa, okay, I'm confused. Is it a child? I didn't know because she was so blonde. She looked like she could have been a tow-headed 12-year-old.
If you're gonna be a B horror movie, give me titty.
Well, yeah, they did.
They eventually.
We did get that.
We got some saggy panties.
Yeah. It wasn't. Yeah. But there's this part where the discovery happens on the property of a local lord, but he rents all this stuff out, right, to these tenant girls. And one of the tenant girls goes like, oh, my spotted dick, and runs into the house. And that's a British dessert. It's a steamed pudding, which what the fuck is a steamed pudding? Well, it's basically like a little dense cake. Yeah. So she's making a little dense cake, and spotted dick is like a normal.
Everything British is.
It's just so British.
You can't like that again. Like I said, like everything that makes this movie great. Well, like if you're British rating this, of course you're not going to like it because you're not. Yeah. It's almost like British is the joke in a way.
Almost, you're right.
It's making fun of its own.
It's so funny that you pointed out like this sort of drawing room way that everyone reacts to things, and that was like an explicit direction, I guess, given to them. Like he wanted them to play it that way. So I think you're right. I think he's satirizing British society and like a little
He's
bit.
aiming outside the aisles here
Yeah,
with this, with the reception for this. He wants this to be an American camp.
Yeah, he's like,
He wants an American audience to watch this British camp.
Totally.
Like,
and
he's very self-aware.
And Ken Russell's, we'll talk more about him later. But I mean, the guy's just like, when people are like, oh, that's too much, he's like, guess what? I'm going to do even more of it. Like, that's his thing. So it's that kind of movie, and just be prepared for it to be full of fucking craziness. But speaking of to support your very British theory, Hugh Grant is in it as Lord James Dampton. We also have Amanda Donohoe as Lady Sylvia Marsh, Catherine Oxenberg as Eve Trent. By the way, Catherine Oxenberg is the one who was in The Vow, that documentary. Her daughter got into NXIVM.
Oh!
And she's trying to get her out. Yeah, that was her.
Shit.
Peter Capaldi, who's young and very full head of hair.
Yeah.
As Angus Flint, who couldn't have been more Scottish.
I was wondering if there was like some intent behind the casting between him and Hugh, because they do have some similar qualities. And because this movie's from the 1988, and I didn't realize that, like, Hugh Grant apparently just he's always looked the same for the last 50 years.
Exactly.
I actually thought Angus was him at first, but maybe just like pre-British fame, like he hasn't gotten his like teeth fixed or whatever the fuck,
That's so funny that you say that, because Mike was watching this over my shoulder and he thought the exact same thing.
Okay, thank you. Because I was like, I can't be the only person who thought that was maybe.
He was like,
just, like,
oh, that's not
Hugh Grant.
He's like, that's not Hugh Grant? It's like, no, that's a fine young Peter Capaldi is what that is.
Oh, so there you go.
I mean, I'm revealing my bias.
No, but it's important to acknowledge that is
the gender ambiguous character we were referring to earlier is played by Sammy Davis, not Junior. But it was her first film, and I felt
Lady Sammy Davis the first,
and I really felt like how she seemed like she was dubbed.
A lot of the movie actually had that quality, which is, again, watching this,
I feel like they had sound issues.
We haven't gotten to, did you like it or not yet? But I will say part of my reticence on that is just, I don't know how many choices here are like intentionally bad, or that sort of like and it's, I don't know, do I want to reward something that's leaning into anyway, but that's one of those things, you pointing that out about the dubbing, because so much of the film did feel that way.
Yeah, it felt like they had some problems, or it was a little jarring. It distracted
some
me.
Issues.
There's like this frustrating, awful song that serves as exposition trying to explain the legend, but then in case you don't get that, Hugh Grant's character sort of also deftly explains it, like, oh, it's
a lot of explaining,
like the legend
things.
of the Dampton Worm, and because that awful song wasn't enough. And I mean, I think in Britain there's a certain romance to the idea, if you just dig a few feet down, you might encounter something from 1,000 years ago. There's a lot of permanent settlements built on top of each other, and so there's something about that that's very cool to me, like this sort of the snake cult, and you built on my temple, you built a convent.
There's something very fun about that. I love the idea that there's these long held, like ancestral,
like pagan things going
grounds on. And exactly, rituals, what have you, and that.
I mean, this movie's bananas, but
I will even say the people who exist in the modern day in this, to this film, their self-awareness of it is almost also kind of fun to see, that like they're watching other people around them discovering these things that were like long held lore, and then the people that were already knew about, did you hear they dug up this wormhead? Yes, I understand we were rivals once. Yes, we shall be again. Yes, here we go, let us spar, shall we? It's kind of funny, the casualness of like, I suppose we've been discovered, yes, blah blah blah, spar.
How romantic. Yes.
That's fun. That is funny.
There was something the girl said at one point. The girl, her name is Mary, but she was the toe-headed one. But she said something about like, well, of course everybody knows the temple used to be there. It's in the name, Temple Street.
Yeah, but
like,
meanwhile, everybody watching this movie is like, well, fuck me.
Like, where were you with that? Why were you sitting on that? Like,
you're just like, okay. I feel like an ass. Like, this whole movie is very like, you're a dumb asshole the whole time you're watching watching it. That's how I felt watching it. Because like every conversation they had was like, oh, of course, obviously, you should know that this word is obviously derived from dragon. And that obviously, yes, I'm the ancestor.
Worm can be spelled W-Y-R-M.
Yeah, exactly. Hugh Grant has one tone in this whole, one setting.
He's kind of perfect, though, as this aristocrat.
Yeah, I don't hate it. He's one of the better parts of it.
Oh, absolutely.
Between him and what's-her-face.
There's that part where he swings his sword around and then, like, cuts the snake in half and then falls into the drum kit.
Yeah, it's great. It very much...
It's a weird movie.
He has the right temperament for what this is. And
he's so calm. The way he engages his staff to put the speakers up on the ceiling. I mean, that was better in telling his servants, you know. But he just seems very casual as he's like putting these records on.
He's one of the better parts of the film for sure.
He feels very at home in this environment, just as I think Sylvia, who of course is actually the snake woman.
Yes, Sylvia,
I think
that's the other one.
And what I liked about the movie, I mean, there's a lot that's like, but I did like that we spent more time with the villain actually than we did the heroes.
I thought she was great.
I liked her.
She very much reminded me. I know we just watched Death Becomes Her.
Yep.
And it made me think this is similarly a very self-possessed, very self-empowered,
and this eternal woman, short, dark hair,
very Isabella Rossellini.
Oh, it was great. Another villain in white. Here's to the first swallow.
I really liked it. I almost wanted them to have, because they seem to have some sort of almost unspoken, like
he's very horrified by her though when she makes that Oscar Wilde quote,
right? Which is funny because I feel like this whole movie is like, what if a fantasy epic was written by Oscar Wilde and everybody's just sitting around eating cucumber sandwiches?
You know what's funny?
Oh, we're supposed to have to slay you. Yes, you are my sworn enemy. Generations bloodbound.
It's so funny that you say that, but I think this was in some respects sort of dedicated to Oscar Wilde. So it's interesting that you're getting that vibe.
It very much feels that way.
I think it's meant to be.
And that's part of why, you know, I would just right out the gate say Sylvia was one of she was one of the first people I'm watching, and I'm like, I'm really actually... it's not hard for me to pay attention to what's happening with her. Not just because obviously she's like sexy, blah, 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 whatever.
No, but she commands the scene.
She commands the scene. I was very much like, oh, St. Vincent has entered the room. Every other scene, every time she had the sunglasses and the coats, and I was like, oh my God.
I took a lot of screenshots because I was like, can we talk about
There's no way Annie Clark has not like seen this movie and been inspired from that. Or or
her stylist or
truly,
whoever she's working. No, it was... I agreed.
Because she very much had that vibe. Oof. And she was very likable. Even the way she was like killing people or fucking with people. Like when she drops the guy in the... I thought that was one of the funnier B-movie moments when she's dropping the guy. And then like right before he goes into the water, he's like, oh shit, my eyes. Closes his eyes right before he goes in.
Yeah. I also just love that moment just for the, like, she's lifting the skull up, like, and giving this very proud speech about Dionin. Yeah. And then the doorbell rings and you just see her kind of like, everything drops.
Oh, dear.
It's like, shit.
Yeah. I love it. No, she was great. Her scene with Hugh Grant was great. Or multiple. They had multiple, but like the very first scene where, again, it's so conversational. Like, oh, yeah. Oh, damn.
So you're the doctor. Oh, no. Forgive me. I'm your neighbor.
Or like, oh, indeed. Yes. We arrive. Oh, indeed. Yes. We must slay.
Yeah, I hear you're having trouble with a snake.
Yes. So stupid. And like, it's such a pussyfoot. Like, yes, so we have some figgy pudding over this.
Yeah. This be nice.
Spotted dick, as it were.
Yes. It was so good, though, in that regard. I also thought there were just so many snake motifs everywhere. Loved that. I like a snake motif. I even love the moment where she tosses that snakes and ladders board into the fire, and she's like,
that was funny too. I liked the artistry of that. I was like, shoot, I'd put that in a picture frame. I'd put that on my wall. Like the way it was painted, like it was painted onto the.
But it's so clearly like this one big white worm, and of course, like we're dancing around a bit. This movie's full of phallic imagery, and whole. I mean, white worm. I mean, come on.
It's all dick.
And when we do uncover the pagan cult, all of the tension is around penetration. Yeah. Like it's very much, I mean, all the pagan strap-on situation. Like
I could have been a little more titillated.
I agree.
But
it's funny. It was more horror than like...
Yeah.
Like Ken Russell is known for doing a lot of wild movies with like lots of sex and nudity. So in a way,
this feels
like,
a little tame, I imagine.
It is. Yeah.
Again, it feels like it's a lot of people sitting around talking about about that dig.
Yeah,
but they're not
like
doing it.
The hallucination moments, like with the scene with the centurions raping the nuns. That's more akin.
Yeah, that one's pretty.
That's more akin to what Ken Russell does. Like that's like he made a whole film. We'll talk.
I didn't like the nuns.
Me neither.
I didn't like the nuns.
I wasn't crazy about that.
They kind of brought the mood down.
They did bring the mood
nuns
down.
are so severe, you know.
Yeah, lots of snake stuff though.
Yeah,
you know, the snake charming, the pins,
the nuns. When we were on the plane with the flight attendants, I was like, okay, yeah, that's a little more.
That was a surreal little like vignette.
That was fun.
I liked that.
I was like, oh, this is where Britney Spears' Toxic came from.
A little bit, maybe. A lot of people have been.
Her uniform in that.
It was pretty
really
close.
Was
You're right.
Not that far from.
I mean, it is possible for two people to generate the same concept, but again, maybe this movie though.
I want to believe that whoever designed Toxic was a Kevin Russell fan.
Kenneth Russell.
Yeah. Continue.
Sorry. Oh no, I'm. What was it? I'm looking at my notes. Rape of nuns.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Do you know nuns? Do you know how to treat a snake bite? Because I don't.
No,
everybody seemed to know how in this movie.
I think the only thing my only instinct is just from True Grit when Jeff Bridges sucks out the poison,
right? Which is what everyone did in this. Right?
Yeah, which is like obviously you're probably gonna have to amputate the limb or wherever the bite was.
Yeah.
But then also don't swallow.
Yeah.
And I don't know if someone bit someone else. I would have to really love them to even do that.
Yeah, I agree.
But beyond that, I have no idea what to do with a snake wound.
Me neither.
With a venom.
It was just a question that came to mind as I watched this movie.
No, I think about that because that's if a snake bites you.
Another question: should the woman at the lab, at the end be fired?
Yeah, I mean. Everyone in this movie should be fired. No, but oh my god, we mixed it up.
We gave you arthritis medication instead of anti-venom.
Oh man, not bad. I mean, arthritis medication. Everybody's got some.
But she's like, oops,
whoopsie poops.
If you want to come back in, I'll give you the right one. Like it's
a very shameless. I wanted to have more fun in that moment.
Me
I'll be honest.
Again,
I was a little.
It was like it was that other shoe that had to drop. Because we watched him inject himself, and we're like, well, I guess he knows what he's doing. And then later he's like anti-venom, you know. And
but it is funny how stupid that change up is.
A little.
I love how shameless
it was. It was added
plot.
So late.
Yeah, I like how shameless. It's very. Again, it feels like it borderlines on that manufactured unfun quality that like I think when you're making a deliberately camp type of movie like this, I'm like, I don't know, like again, these are all just sort of self-imposed, like these are the things in my brain that are going off that I'm thinking like, well, what am I willing to let on and off the hook as we're watching this in order to enjoy it? Because I do love how nonchalantly they're treating all this prophetic crap that they're talking about, because that's how I feel when I listen through a lot of this. But at a certain point I'm getting so inundated and then there's a tonal dissonance between some of the characters that we're not like,
it's never resolved.
It's not fully resolved. We're not fully like either making a statement where we're punishing like the dumbass like melodramatic people or we're punishing like the nonchalant people. Like there's no actual statement being made, so it feels a little like muddy. And then you have that come up at the end with this oops. But it's like, well, then I want to have more fun with that. If that's what it is, which I think it is a comedic take on the idea of there being this sort of twist ending.
Oh yeah, want to stop for a bite.
I want to have more fun.
Yeah,
you know.
No, I hear you.
Yeah.
And it did pick up speed in terms of, I think, horror, like more toward the end. Like from the moment when the girl sees her mother and there's the jump scare of the mother kind of biting, like that definitely was like but
good visuals that I would have liked sooner. This movie was 93 minutes. I feel like it could have been really, 73
like,
minutes
because the last part got like, oh, we're kind of in a different movie in terms of tone.
It was like by the time we got towards the end, it was where I feel like I'm assuming, I feel like this is where we got to the kind of movie we wanted to make.
But
we had to get all this exposition out of the way. which already turned me off from the get, because look, if you're going to commit to like a full-blown ridiculous bullshit fest, let's just
do it.
Let's just dive. I don't give a fuck. I do not need to hear these people sitting around and talk. I do not need to hear these people going into their stakes or whatever. If we're going to have to see and hear all this stuff about the mom later anyway or whatever, I don't need to. I don't care who's who here. Let's just get in.
I definitely am with you about I didn't connect emotionally with anyone except maybe the villain, but I'm not supposed to, you know.
But she's so charming and entertaining.
Yeah, because she's sophisticated, right?
Yeah.
She's so bored with everything,
and she's succinct. Everything she's saying is very very on the nose. Like her character. The whole movie really actually feels very operatic in the sense that you watch an opera and every character is always, if you translate all of the, you know, things like magic flute or whatever, everybody's just saying like, I'm sad and I'm lonely and I want to love her. Oh, and I'm hungry and I just like to eat food all the time.
And where are my keys?
Where are my keys? And this is, I'm angry. I'm going to kill all of you and I'm going to sing about this. Yeah.
The sun's so hot today.
So this movie did that, and including the weird sort of kind of Irish jiggy song that not Irish jiggy, but like what's the,
I don't know.
I don't know who I'm thinking.
I'm thinking like a Dropkick Murphys
That's
vibe,
who I'm thinking.
You know?
Dropkick Murphys.
It was like not quite ska, but
it reminded me of that Christmas song that has the long story that like I'm not paying it. I never pay attention to it, but I know it's supposed to be it's a ballad where like sad shit happens, but it has an upbeat tone. It's just like, okay, we get it.
That song, I like gritted my teeth through. I was just like,
I was like, okay,
I'm gonna turn the volume down on this.
But I actually didn't pay attention to the lore in that.
No,
song,
you shouldn't,
even though I knew it was important, because I almost felt angry that they were doing this to me. I was just like,
you're gonna make me pay attention.
Pick a fucking lane.
I think that's part of why, like, Hugh Grant gives a shorter version.
Exactly.
Later, but it's like pick one.
That's when I first like fully actually tuned in. Is you see Hugh Grant come in,
and then it's like
he has that sort of almost like
I'm with you. That is also where I fully tuned in.
He has
it became a movie.
Inspector Poirot, however you say his name.
Yeah.
Comes that vibe of sort of like somebody comes in, the inspector or the FBI agent, and goes, okay, well, clearly this thing happened and this happened, and once Hugh Grant came in, I was like, well, I wish the movie had just started here.
Yeah.
I do not care about all this Dorothy Gale. Oh, I found this thing in the hen yard. Like, I found this big skull in the hen yard.
It might have been Bessie.
Oh, shoot. Was it a cow? It can't be a cow. Oh, no.
A cow has horns.
No, that's exactly. All this is back and forth, and then they're also squeezing in important exposition, so I'm mad that I'm supposed to be paying attention.
But I don't want to.
I already know, because I was high as a kite watching this, so I was like, I know I'm not going to retain. Yes, I know I'm not going to retain. And then the song happens, and it has that generic sort of dropkick like, and the same I'm not gonna fucking remember. Fuck you. So finally, you have Hugh Grant come in and go, oh, clearly, did you know a worm is supposed to be a dragon? And I was like, okay, thank you. All right, so this is like a snake dragon head thing. That's what it is. Okay, and you're obviously important.
It's like, and the plane has now taken off.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. I was like, okay. And speaking of planes, one of the other most interesting scenes being hallucination.
Right. No, I agree.
I mean, I was like, oh, this is like, let's just do this shit for
a little bit more.
Let's go full altered states here. Let's just lean
It's so funny because that's what a film can Russell do.
There you go. Exactly. I was like, if you're gonna do that, do that. Which actually is another movie that I would argue pussyfoots too much before it dives in.
Yeah, it's funny because like I think that was like his first real sci-fi altered states. So this is part of like the weird, I mean, this is part of a 3-movie series that he had with Vestron Pictures, which is a great name. One of which was Gothic from 1986, which is a big hit. And then they knew he was going to make this other movie called The Rainbow, which was a sequel to Sons and Lovers, which he made earlier, which was a big success, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, Sons and Lovers.
Oh, no, sorry. He didn't do Sons and Lovers. He did Women in Love.
Oh, okay.
But it's another T.E.
Right.
D.H.
Lawrence.
Well, D.H. Lawrence is the pervert.
The pervy book guy.
Yeah.
The book one. It's supposed to be sexy, but then the books are so thick. I'm like, oh, I mean, man, am I even going to get turned on? Am I going to have to read like
how many pages?
Is it going to be 4 pages about stimulating the clit? Like, because I can't care that much.
I think like that's where going to the library is a good idea, because you'll figure out where the book falls open, and that's usually where the dirty shit is. Like, find the Find the creased part.
Well, that's why everyone's so quiet in the library.
Oh, yeah.
They're all just trying to figure out.
They're reading their dirty books.
They're all reading their D.H. Lawrence. Like, is this going to get me going? Is this getting me off?
Anyway, we're not
Is
talking
this the
about
Lady Chatterley's lovers of movies.
This isn't that. Snake stuff.
Yes,
is there
continue.
Is there anyone you would or could show this movie to, and why? Or are you like, nope, this is it, I'm cutting off the head of the snake?
Well, it's tough because like I would probably want to show it to someone. Like I would show it to you, but we're obviously watching.
Done.
We already done. I look at you as somebody, Victoria, as a compliment, and I mean it.
I'm like,
that like you're obviously you have you're an intelligent person, but also like your film literacy and your like breadth of knowledge and context going into any movie you watch is like very valuable to something like this, where I'm like, okay, I don't want you to just either not understand it and be like, oh, this is boring and dumb, or overly compliment and jizz yourself over it. Like I thought your rating actually was like diplomatic and fair, what I saw in Letterboxd.
Oh, I don't even remember what I wrote.
It said it was like a 3.5 star rating, as like praising Hugh Grant with the sword and stuff. And I was like, okay, yeah, I think that's a diplomatic, if not also personally for me, generous. But I'm also an asshole.
Yeah.
But I would say beyond you, I feel like so many other people I could think of who even are, they're like cinephiles, would maybe overly. Again, I'm a dick. I don't want to overly praise this movie.
I get you.
I think it's important to acknowledge, like,
it's weird.
We need to know and understand for ourselves what does camp mean? What does a B movie mean? And is this somebody? And if someone's making that intentionally,
right,
why? Did they succeed?
Yeah.
Was this entertaining the whole way? And as someone who loves camp, as someone who loves B-movie dumb bullshit stuff, not dumb bullshit stuff. Like it's a lot of it's very intentional. It's usually very satirical, or it has some commentary to be made about like the thing. It gets crudely imitating.
It gets to do things in an off way.
You know, like John Waters, the godfather of that, right? Again, like you'd be the first person I'd show this kind of stuff to.
Fair,
you know, you love Mel Brooks and you love satire. Like I know you would appreciate it. Even still, I was very bored in the first end of this.
Yeah.
And then on the back end, I was frustrated.
Yeah.
So
no,
I don't know who else I would show this to. I don't know who honestly else I would show this to.
It's like a subjection thing. It's a punishment.
Because this movie doesn't want you to watch it earnestly.
Kind of, yeah.
But then if you don't watch it earnestly,
you'll miss what the hell is happening.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why I was kind of right in that in-between land.
Yeah.
Of... I would give this probably like a 2.5 to 3, depending on my mood.
I hear you. Yeah.
I think depending on how passionate I was feeling in the moment.
It's just so fucking weird that I'm like, I mean, I've seen weirder, but I'm like, I always kind of just love stuff that's out there. What I'm sort of, now that I've read more about Ken Russell though, I'm like, oh, I hate that this is the first one I'm seeing, because I get
we can add more to our
we've got
list.
I think we have to, because he's kind of, I think I have a new role model.
I would
he's really fun.
I would argue to rewatch Altered State. I mean, I have technically seen it,
I mean, that's latter days. I mean, the thing that he did Women in Love, which was very received well. The thing though is that in that movie there's a scene where Oliver Reed and Alan Bates wrestle naked, and I mean their dicks are flopping. I mean, like
Let's add it to the list.
I mean, I saw a clip of it, and I was like, I'm like, man, see, this is why The Northman was never going to be good, because they didn't have that.
You can't treat this stuff too epic. What are you looking to get out of this?
Yeah,
is the thing.
Yeah, I think a laugh.
Yeah,
like a chuckle. That's like as high as the bar should be.
There you go.
A good chuckle. I mean, it's also like the source material wasn't good. Like Bram Stoker's book, everyone I read talking about this book was like, yeah, it's really not that good.
Yeah.
Like Dracula, magnificent. But Bram Stoker wrote The Lair of the White Worm a year before he died, and everyone's like, yeah, he just couldn't get it together.
He was farting out at that point, maybe.
Yeah, it wasn't going well. So it's interesting that he's taking this he's like, well, Russell was like, I'll just take the backbone of this, the snake cult.
The last thing that Shakespeare wrote was fucking one with the island, the Tempest.
Yeah.
The Tempest was Shakespeare's.
Really?
And it's big and it's epic and it's very like, this is the end of my life. What does it all come up to? There's so many. Yes, the Tempest is his last published play. And I could be wrong. I might be mistaken, but I'm 95% certain. Maybe I could be wrong. I mean, 95% off.
We could fact check it.
But I'm pretty sure Tempest is his last.
Okay.
And it's, this big epic sort of existential reflection on existence and...
Right, because he washes up on the island.
Exactly. And like, what is my purpose? What do I have to give? Like, what, and then between that versus Lair of the White Worm. Yeah. I guess it's just Lair of the White Worm. It feels like it's that last like endorphin like rush of like, titties and vampires and dragons.
Yeah, like here's some
fucking swords.
But the thing is, this, as I mentioned earlier, Bram Stoker based it on a local legend. Well, not local to him because he was Irish, but in somewhere in the northern England. I want to say in the Lake District or the Peak District. I don't know. It's all these different areas.
Derbyshire's the movie.
Derbyshire. Yeah, and
Derbyshire.
But up in that area, there is this the story about. I wrote a brief synopsis of the legend because I was like, let me just get the bullet points. Okay. All right. So the Lambton Worm legend. This is inspired comics, operas, speaking of opera, films, songs, novels, all kinds of bullshit in this movie. Little John Lambton, little boy, one day misses church to go fishing. And then he catches a weird-looking eel or lamprey, something ugly, in the River Weir.
River Weir.
Yeah. And at some point, an old man or an old witch, depending on which version you're reading, we're just going to go with an old witch, warns him like, oh, you can't miss church. That's not going to be good. He's like, yeah, whatever. And he's like,
that's not going to be good.
But he's like, yeah, whatever. I'm gonna go and I'm going to go fish. Anyway, caught the eel. And he's like, ugh. And he throws it down a well because like, get out of here. And then he forgets all about it. Grows up, blah, blah, blah. Now he's a man. Goes off to fight in the Crusades. He's gone for years. Meanwhile, the worm in the well like got bigger. And the lamprey or the eel, whatever the fuck this thing is, it gets bigger. And suddenly it's causing havoc in the countryside. It's killing villagers and livestock, and it's a problem. Yeah. So John Lambton comes home from the Crusades, and he's like, what the fuck? What's going on? Like, his dad's like, I don't know, the place is all messed up. So he's like, well, I'm going to fix this. And he decides, well, I'm going to go slay the worm or the eel, whatever we're calling it, the dragon. But before he does that, he goes and consults with the witch. He's like, hey, wait a minute. Someone told me about this. Yeah. Who presumably is still alive. Goes and talks to them about how can I slay it? And they explain, like, okay, go wear this armor, do this thing, whatever. They warn him, though, that like, okay, danger, danger. If you slay the dragon, you have to kill the next living thing you see. Otherwise, your family would be cursed for like 9 generations.
That's already like more interesting than the convoluted like crap fest that like they introduce at the start. Bring it to the modern day if you want, but just like it's so.
We needed more of this. Come on. And then we're almost at the end. Okay. So he kills the dragon and he's like, aha. And his whole plan is like, okay, I know. So I'll kill the dragon. And then the first thing I'll kill, it basically chooses his least favorite dog. And his dad's like, okay, yeah, I'll release the dog. You kill the dog, and then we're free. No curse, and the dragon's gone. And then, of course, John slays the dragon. John's dad immediately forgets and like runs out to like go congratulate his kid.
Well, then he deserved to die.
I mean, he should have, but
idiot.
John couldn't do it. He couldn't pull the trigger. So the family's cursed. And I guess like there were a few generations where people died in sort of weird ways. So it kind of held up.
Yeah.
That's the story.
Which is fun. Like, I find that fascinating, actually, the idea of, although I'm very easily frustrated by stories that have these curses where there's some dumb things.
But it feels like a Beowulf story or something.
It reminds me of like Orpheus, Eurydice, like, oh, just don't turn. And then he turns back right at the end and fucks it up.
You guys.
Come on.
I just said.
That's Hades. You guys, come on.
Oh, I hate you.
Oh my God, it's so frustrating.
But he's stupid than me.
Never again. Never again.
Putting this in my burn book.
I'm Boo Boo the Fool, never again. And that's why no one other than Orpheus has ever been able to do what he did.
Yeah.
Because he fucked it up for everybody else.
Yeah. That's what happens when you're a good poet. Isn't that the whole thing, right?
Yeah, when you're a good poet with
Death wants you.
Yeah, and you with poor convictions.
Yes.
I don't know. The Fates were bullying him pretty hard in Hades Town. They were some bitches.
Okay. Did you happen to look at reviews?
I did.
Okay.
I did look at. I didn't go into in depth, and I know you sent me stuff. I'm sorry.
No. That was just so I felt
just as reference.
Yeah.
I will say, Rotten Tomatoes. It's technically fresh.
Okay.
So think of a movie you love that's rotten, and then watch this and think, is that fair?
Does this measure up truly?
Like we said, though, it's all about like how do you categorize? How do you self-identify as a film?
Right. Well, that's the other thing.
It's pretty important how big you signal that, and this movie goes really out of its way to signal what it is.
Yeah, and I don't want to interrupt you. You're right about to launch, but I just want to say, this movie is available on Tubi, but it's also on Criterion, so it gets that little bit of a sheen.
Criterion too. Like I like that we visit stuff from them because they seem to they take things in that are like culturally relevant, right? But they're not necessarily highbrow.
They're not necessarily always the best films, but they're always like interesting or different, or like people saw this at this time.
We would just be watching like a million Citizen Kanes if they only brought in movies that were like the most accolade ridden.
I mean, I like Citizen Kane, but
it is good.
But I can't watch it
movie.
Again.
But I can't watch trying to think what else to say, and I wasn't gonna throw.
I went to see it in the theater like a few years ago.
Oh,
I remember just the whole time I was like, just Rosebud, just get to the end. Like,
get on with it.
I had no patience.
I respect. I've actually only watched Citizen Kane all the way through.
The first time I was hooked, but like I watched it a few more times. Maybe I was just hungry and I wanted to get out of the theater.
Maybe you were hungry.
in a theater. And
You're in a theater.
And I was like, I'm. When is this over?
Well,
reviews.
I'll say audience score is technically rotten at 47%. So, it's and I would still argue that this is and both ends fairly. I think the audience score actually is pretty valid. I think the audience score, it's technically rotten. Like, I don't think this movie deserves to have a fresh tomato over films that are more competently I put
agree.
together than this.
I agree with you.
Even if I feel like it's hiding itself behind the whole guise of, this is a British camp horror film comedy thing.
Completely agree.
It's the same thing. I'm bringing up Blonde just because, again, it's in the zeitgeist. It's a recent thing. I was just talking about it.
Which we will not be watching for this movie.
We are not. We were.
This show.
I love that it's fucking gone from the whiteboard. Fuck that movie and fuck Andrew Dominic.
Yeah.
Prove me wrong, Andrew. I don't think you care. I don't think you give a shit enough about women to care to want to prove me wrong because of the way you did Marilyn and de facto women dirty in that fucking movie. It's such a pessimistic, mean fucking movie. But I will say, I had a point, and it had to do with that.
It fell off the truck somewhere.
It is about how that movie. The people behind that movie, specifically Andrew, are trying to evade criticism of the product that they have presented because anybody who's like, this isn't accurate to Marilyn Monroe. Well, it's based off of a novel, actually. It's technically fiction. Okay. It's actually, this is a very, why is it this or that or whatever. And then the opposite side, they go, this is supposed to be reverential. It's based off of Marilyn Monroe. Like they want to have their spoils of a biopic without having to deal with any of sort of the murkier aspects of creating a biopic. Okay. This is a movie that I don't think it's obviously committing as deep of a sin as a movie like Blonde. I would not say Lair. I do not feel that. This is
harmless.
This is an enjoy. I would argue more in favor of watching this movie than not watching this movie. But I would also argue that this score, this critical score that it's getting, is from people who I think, I can't say for every review, but I think a lot of people. I almost feel like it's a clout thing. I almost feel like it's a little bit of like I need to prove that I like
weird stuff.
Yeah, I need to prove that I'm in on the weird side thing. Like, which is why, again, like I said, you're 3.5 stars. I think right on the money, and that is the most I could give it.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think it deserves more than that because it should still be more competent for what it is.
I agree.
It's 1988, okay? We've had Rocky Horror's been playing in theaters for 13 years now.
It's true.
We know what a competently made, like, true camp film is. And and as basic as that sounds, as as annoying as I am, maybe, I think it is a really solid benchmark on so many levels. And also, if you want to even throw that away, look at like John Waters' movies, not just Pink Flamingos, but even like he has a consistency with like what else he makes, right? With Female Trouble,
right? Well, that was also like I think those were part of the Trash trilogy, right? And I think Multiple Maniacs might have been the other one.
Okay, yes.
I think, and those three were definitely deliberately like in a tone.
In a specific tone, and think of David Lynch. Thinking in terms of like looking at that genre of film of subversiveness. And I'm not saying I think the whole point is that they're supposed to. These are all people who are trying to break the rules, but this is somebody who is trying to adhere to rules. I would argue is what my issue with this film is. It's not a rule breaking film. It's a film that's actually trying to define and codify camp rules, and I don't know if I respect that. That's where I'm standing. Again, 2.5 to 3 stars where I'm at on it. I don't hate it. It's still a lot of fun to watch.
Oh, no. It feels like a film from the 60s, but it was made in 88.
If it was in the 60s, I mean, obviously, I would have to give it a higher review, and I almost feel like maybe that's part of what this dissonance is with the score.
I wonder if it is, because I feel like by 88, you're right. There are so many other visions. There's so many other people who have done...
I just think at that point, it's 1988, and we're about to have Working Girl, okay? Like, you need to have a clarity of purpose here, okay?
That's right, yeah.
Like,
and the Carly Simon themes.
It's okay to be earnest again.
Yeah.
I have the other review stuff. I guess,
please,
I'm sorry. I know I went off on a tangent, but that's just I had to ask myself after watching this movie, because it was a movie I wanted to like.
Why didn't it work?
Why didn't it work for me?
Sure.
And on a very juvenile level, I have to say it's because I was bored. But
that's a reaction
on a larger. But why? And the why is because I think we didn't really let go enough, and it's because if we're not letting go, it's because there's some sort of rule or implied rule or trajectory that was being shoehorned in here
totally
in a way that like didn't have to happen. We could have had more fun. Anyway, that being said, Roger Ebert agreed with me and said Russell was once and no doubt will be again considered an important director. This is the sort of exercise he could film with one hand tied behind his back. And it looks like that was indeed more or less his approach. But
That's a fair review.
He also did say, I took another screenshot where he was saying something to the effect of, he gave it 2 stars out of 4. Like he didn't fully annihilate it. He said it's a respectable B-grade monster movie. It's not, it gets the job done. It's just, it doesn't soar in the way that like this, it had all the elements that it could have.
It's like, it's a monster movie, it's a B movie, but it's like, it's not a cult classic though. I mean, maybe it will become one. Go ahead.
I do want to quote two lady critics here. One of them, I don't know if of course I don't fully agree. It has a fresh score next to her. April Wolfe, she said, "What's so wonderful about Russell's quintessential female villain is that she embodies a sense that evil has no gender. It has no feelings. It simply is, and it's quite fun to get to know it." There's parts of that I agree with. I think the villain is extremely female.
I mean,
I do get the whole no feelings. Like there is a removal of emotion that we were just talking about.
They shoehorn in like a little bit of like a genderless hermaphroditic thing, but it's so brief.
They put a little Paul Revere hat on her.
I mean, seriously. I mean, it was about as well explained as the whole mix up at the lab.
I would, and my favorite review, I think it's too generous, but what are you gonna do? It's on brand. Sarah Squirm on Letterboxd said 4 stars. "This is what we call," quote, "a penis movie," quote. So
that's it.
That's all she said.
That's the review.
But that's the review, and I felt like it was the most concise. Honestly,
I mean,
I can read other ones. I'll be honest.
It's okay.
I think. I'm fully biased. That's the thing is like maybe this is not the best role for me. As I was going through the views, I was just like, I think this is overly laud. Did I miss something, or is this overly lauding?
No.
A film that I think doesn't deserve.
No, like this is the point of us doing this, though.
I don't want to read all.
We don't trust. We don't trust other voices.
This is our fucking podcast.
Right. We just take a peek. to see, right? Because
And
I thought like
that's my peak is that I saw people I think were a little overly congratulatory about.
I think like last week on The Death Becomes Her, you know,
Yeah.
the fact that you were noticing like, wow, women really seem to enjoy this movie.
Yes.
A bunch of male critics seem to really not get it.
Yes.
So I think it is worthwhile, you know, and
I'll be fucking honest. I don't agree with all of you.
I mean,
I don't agree with most of you. I'm sorry.
The reviews that the ones I found, I didn't really read them. I just read the headlines, but the general vibe was, yeah, it's just kind of wild.
It's very like
campy.
any criticism you could make. Then it's like, oh well, you're already deflated because like, well, it's a British campy horror, and
Right,
if you didn't
you're not
like
allowed
this,
to-
then that was into. You're wrong because that's what. And I'm like, well, no, fuck you.
No,
fuck you. I was bored.
there's good-
This could have been better.
There's good
There are
camp, there's bad camp.
There's good camp and there's bad
Also-
camp. It's 1988.
and
I've
you-
seen more zippier, better
Yeah, I mean,
versions of this kind of thing.
and you brought up Mel Brooks briefly a while ago, but I
Yeah.
mean, he said something about if the audience doesn't laugh, it's our fault, you know, like
And I fully agree with that.
yeah.
And I hold myself accountable to that too.
Yeah,
Like, I'm not.
I'm with you.
You know,
No, I'm with you. I'm.
if you're overthinking it, it failed.
I agree. I mean, there are certain movies that are designed to cause you to think, but that's a different discipline. That's not.
And it's like,
that's
oh, well,
not what. And
you
this
don't know or understand this thing. It's like, well, no, I think a really well-made film, you don't need to know or understand every fucking thing about it. Again, I know Rocky Horror maybe is it's elementary school, kindergartner, cult classic comedy, but there's a reason for that, and it's because when I watched that movie the first time when I was fucking 9 years old, I enjoyed it as much as I enjoy it now at age 32, because a well-made camp you can appreciate at different times for different things, and it's still good. Like I could enjoy watching my first John Waters movie, which was Hairspray.
Yeah.
As much as I can enjoy, as much as I can enjoy, a John Waters movie now, because
he's making a new one.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. Yeah, no, and they're doing it's the
Liar-mouth.
From his Liar-mouth. Yeah, and I want to read that book.
I know. I
Actually,
gotta buy it.
I'm interested to see how he tackles
I would
a shitty female protagonist again.
Oh yeah,
because that's
fun.
what that is.
Yeah.
And I've always appreciated that, because at the end of the day, if there's something convoluted and you're having to doubt yourself, am I just like an idiot or shitty or whatever? I know it's not, I shouldn't say it as a blanket statement, because maybe, some self-reflection is always good when you're taking in any form of media. But when I think about something like this, that is so proudly stating itself by the makers of it, that it's this B-camp horror thing, you know, this is again why I brought up Blonde, because the people are behind that are so proudly saying, but it's a Bible. No, but it's also a fiction.
But
no,
that's
but
just
it's,
it. Like,
you can't, don't cloak your, you have to.
One of the things I was taught, they would always tell you in school, if somebody found this on a desert island, could they understand it without anyone explaining it to them? Yeah. And I do think that this movie has, Kenneth Russell's so crazy, you know, he's kind of a punchline, you know, in of itself, and the fact that he didn't really take it that seriously, it was kind of a middle throw. He had 3 films and it was just like, let's do this, you know, because I think the audience score is solid. Okay. And I think that the critic score for this is, and maybe my mood will change, but that's again why I swing between like a 2.5 and 3 on this. You got to. I appreciate it.
I don't. Maybe more time for me to let this marinate, because I did just watch it. You know, maybe I can appreciate it more over time.
I mean, I ended up watching it twice, mostly because the first time it was just like, okay, what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
And then I went and did all my research, and then I went back. It's still really it still doesn't grab me.
There's still a lot to enjoy and appreciate.
There's things to enjoy.
I would still, I do argue, like, I think your review was solid and fun, and there's more to like than not like.
It's more about those little moments than it is. It's a lot of things hung on a clothesline. It's not necessarily
but just like, what the fuck is this even, like us before we started recording, I was like, I didn't fully understand even what this movie was about.
What was going to be. No.
Initially,
totally.
which is okay. You don't have to get everything all the time, but just, you know.
Well, Tilda Swinton didn't get it either, because she turned down the role of the villain, you know.
Oh, she would have been great in it.
She would have been great, but that was who Russell wanted. That was his first choice. So
interesting.
But she read the script and was like, no.
I almost feel like this is in that terrain of a Jim Jarmusch.
It is a little bit,
like,
right?
She was in The Dead Don't Die.
Right.
And it reminded me of that. And well, she was also in that other one we watched, Only Lovers. Or whatever.
Hugh Grant was definitely years later kind of embarrassed by it. I don't know. We haven't
He's
checked
one
in
of the
with
best parts about it.
I know.
He didn't do anything wrong.
We haven't checked in with him lately to see if that opinion has changed, but he was like, he's like, it just didn't seem like it knew whether it was being horror or comedy. And
I think that's fair. I think that's probably the most diplomatic way of putting it.
I think it is too.
It is a movie that's sort of, it's trying to say it knows what it, like everybody watching it wants to say it knows what it is. It seems like critics, they want to like it and say, oh, I'm in on the joke. Are you? I don't know. In some respects, Ken Russell always seems like he hates his audience just a little bit. That's a little bit of what that felt
there's always a joke that's just for him.
Yeah.
And I think that's he can be a charming presence, or could be. He's passed, but but he could also be frustrating and bombastic and childlike and very possessive and treat people
I don't know,
like toys.
I almost feel like you could make a better movie just fucking owning that shit a little harder.
Well, again,
just lean in harder.
I think this
same
might
with Altered States, I would argue. I think that movie is a little full of itself in a different way.
Sure. And I don't think this is peak Russell. I think, from what I'm reading anyway, that there's a few movies I'll briefly talk about. We mentioned Women in Love and the Great Naked Wrestling thing. But then he had, in London anyway, in the West End where a lot of different theaters are, movies and theatrical, he's the only director who has ever had 3 hits in theaters at the same time. And that was Music Lovers 1970, The Devils 1971, and The Boyfriend 1971. Music Lovers is a film about Tchaikovsky, which is I'm like, I would watch that.
Yeah. Put that on the list.
The Devils is the wild sex and religion one that
put it on the list.
I know. And The Boyfriend, which was an MGM style musical with Twiggy as the lead, and no one expected it because it was so.
You can put them all on the list.
I'm not sure about that last one, but I do want. And there were a few things about the film. Like I said, Hugh Grant. Oh, I wanted to mention that Catherine Oxenberg. We mentioned her daughter Nixium and all that. But I guess it was planned for her to be naked in that final sacrifice scene, but she refused. Totally fine.
Sure.
But she is the daughter of Princess Elizabeth of Yugoslavia.
All
so
right.
I guess there was some concern about
the
being
Yugoslavians are gonna get pissed.
It doesn't exist anymore, but it's like one of those great things. You can be royalty without
R.I.P.
It's the best way, really.
Yeah.
This was filmed on location at Shepperton Studios for 7 weeks. Special effects, of course, was time consuming. Often they had multiple units shooting at the same time. The chroma key compositing, like all those kind of crazy the scenes with the nuns and the rape and all that, the rape and the whatever, all that. That was definitely a thing that at the time was probably more impressive. Although, again, we just talked last week about the special effects in Death Becomes Her, which only happens a few years later. And it really is like...
you could have made Death Becomes Her.
Right. Where was he? Movies, some other movies that were in the cinema at the time. I looked at US films. I didn't check the UK chart, so this is maybe not fair. But the movies that were out, number 1 was Alien Nation. Number 2 was Gorillas in the Mist. Number 3 at the box office was Punchline. 4, The Accused, and 5, Cocktail. And then other movies that were just out, Halloween 4, doing good. Big, Young Guns, Imagine, John Lennon, that documentary, and Mystic Pizza. So that was the climate.
Probably would have gone to see Cocktail.
I might have seen that, yeah.
Or Punchline.
I don't know. What is Punchline? I don't even
Punchline is Sally Field, and I think Tom Hanks is in it, actually. It's like stand-up. It's a woman doing like stand-up comedy.
Huh.
If I'm not mistaken.
And you've seen it?
No, I haven't actually seen it. But I'm just trying to think, like, what would I have gone to see? It wouldn't have been this.
No, it would not have been this. I don't even know if this would have been playing near us.
It just would have been playing at our local Lamely.
Yeah, the Lamely.
The Lamely.
I'll just breeze through. Ken Russell is a big character. There's too many things to name, so I'm going to not spend a lot of...
We'll watch more of his stuff so we can go into more detail.
Great.
But we can just do
just
like
briefly.
A little bit.
He's born in Southampton, New England, sort of southern coast. He was born July 3rd, 1927. His father, Henry, was a shoe shop owner. And apparently it was pretty emotionally distant and cold. Took out his rage on the family a lot. Oh. His mother, suffered from mental illness. I didn't get more details, but we're gonna revisit.
I like you more.
I know.
I can't.
He used to go.
Score, but I relate.
He used to go to the movies with his mother. That was a big thing. One of the biggest influences was a movie called The Secret of the Loch, which was about the Loch Ness Monster. So it all comes around.
Oh, that's
it's kind of sweet.
I want to give it more.
I know.
Well, should make a better movie.
He has.
Yeah, no, he has.
When he was a child, there's a sort of story given out that the first time he heard classical music, it really shook him to his core, and that he went to the record shop, got a copy of whatever it was he heard, brought it home. And it was like Igor Stravinsky's Rite of Spring, which I don't know if that's actually true or if this is just the legend. But he came home and stripped off all his clothes and danced around to it. And
oh man, he's great.
And people and somebody asked like why would you? I said, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, dude. Oh no, this guy's legit.
Yeah,
he's got a lot of. I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
And he lived a lot of different lives before he got into filmmaking.
Sure.
He was briefly in the military, both the Royal Air Force and the Merchant Navy. He had a brief career as a ballet dancer in Sweden, and then he became a freelance photographer. And he did a series of stills about the Teddy Girls, which is like a really interesting like Teddy. You know about Teddy Boys, Teddy Girls? Yeah, they were like this kind of subculture fashion. Yeah, sort of punk but Edwardian inspired.
Yeah, it had like kind of been like an elevated tone to it.
Very cool. Like, high collars. There's like a little bit Victorian style.
It's very like on tone for him.
It's very cool.
I feel like there's that apex.
Well, he was out there working in that sort of culture, and also it's funny. He grew up in southern part of England, not very far from the place where my father grew up. And, England was still really bombed out, after the war. And so I'm thinking about my dad, who was born in 1949, like growing up among like bombed out buildings was a pretty normal experience. So there are these photos that Russell took, women dressed up nicely, but they're like posing through the window of something that's completely fucked up, and it's just like
it's that whole high and low.
He was exactly. He was very interesting, and so this work got him attention, and he started doing documentary films for the BBC, specifically arts documentaries, because they wanted somebody with a bit more of a poetic take. And you might think like, oh, arts documentaries, how could that be wild? Well, he made them really wild and crazy, and he also introduced the idea of actors playing. Reenactment can be cheesy, but he was really breaking a lot of rules by doing it. And so he did a lot of things about composers. He's really interested in composers, seemingly. Or he's done a lot of he did a film about Liszt. He's done a film about Tchaikovsky. He did documentaries about various others. Anyway, and a lot of what he did seems pretty obvious and normal today, but at the time, again, it was very groundbreaking. It was like, well, why don't we just go to the location the poet was inspired by with the poet? Then we'll have him read. I don't know. He thinks with his eyes. That's what people said about him. But again, flamboyant, controversial, infuriating. And he just one more detail. Ken Russell has, I guess, the Ken method of directing was basically a 1 to 10 scale. Give me a 5. Give me 7. No. Give me a 2.
I like that.
That's it. Or when people would. He didn't really give notes so much, which actors found frustrating, but also he'd be like, it's too, it needs to be more, that's how he would talk.
I love that.
Yeah, he would talk to people that way, talk to his other
artists. So much to like. I just wanted to like this more.
I just think we came in at the wrong time.
I want to watch more of his stuff, and I would revisit Altered States too.
Absolutely.
I have my thoughts about that, but I mean, everything about him, I'm like, I want to like this guy. And I feel like there's goodwill behind that score.
I think
behind the scores
I think that's exactly
There's
it.
a lot of goodwill. But again, not unearned, but for this film specifically.
But at the same time, though, like that's the point, right? We're supposed to, we're trying to look at this without, we're trying to look at this without the benefit of that, without knowing who it is. Like, how does it stand on its own without any introduction, without any explanation?
But now we have all that.
I know.
So what else?
Best supporting player.
I don't know.
I mean, there's The Worm. I'm going to say The Worm.
I guess The Worm. There you go. Done.
And would you watch this again? I'm good. I've watched it twice now. I'm good.
If it was on at a party and I was lit, I'd probably go into a tirade and be like, I don't know, blah, blah, about
I think
this.
At this
I'd
point,
probably annoy some poor person.
Yeah, I think, you'd like, I know what I would do. I would be drunkenly and loudly explaining what's going to
Yeah,
happen.
I would probably end up, I would start
I'm like,
doing
you
that.
see this bitch?
And then
She's
other
going to
people
kill him.
would
She's going to grow
right.
teeth. Look.
Other people would start splitting off immediately, trying to change the subject or possibly change the channel.
And you, like,
then
grab
I would
them.
crap.
Yeah.
I would trap one person.
The most polite one,
Oh
right?
my God, I'm the problem.
Awesome.
there's that.
At this point, we have mentioned like so many movies being appropriate for parties. I think we're gonna have to come up with a playlist
Yeah, is
eventually.
this a party appropriate movie?
Is this a party movie? Yes.
Kind of.
I mean, we said
but probably other like.
Well, we said UHF was
music-
a perfect party movie. because-
UHF is perfect. That's one I wouldn't play any music in the background. I would just
Yeah,
have that
just
playing
play
at,
UHF.
at standard volume. This one I would play, but then I'd probably
I'd
have like a
put-
playlist on top of it.
Agreed.
And
Yeah.
so you wouldn't have to pay attention
Yeah,
to
put
it.
some Zeppelin over this.
But then once in a while you'd look up and be like, oh shit, is that guy getting a lap dance from a flight attendant?
Yeah. Wait, did
going
she just
on?
bite that guy's dick?
Oh fuck! Wait, it's like wow. What's going on with those saggy panty? Saggy panty.
Saggy panty.
Saggy panty.
Oh no.
Saggy panty.